So great. So today is June 7th, 2020. We are in the midst of a very interesting time. This is right now episode 1 of the Woke as Fuck show with Harry Berberian, sponsored by 313 Believe, and we got an amazing guest. I know her mom, and it's Zora Bowens. And Zora,
Hello.
what is it? What did you say?
I said yes, hello.
Yes, please, Zora, tell us about what you're doing and your background. Please tell us a little bit about yourself.
So my name is Zora Bowens, will be changed soon to Monico, for reasons because Bowens is the last name of a slave owner and I'd like to change that. But my background, I am Black, white, and Native American. I'm from Detroit. I go to school for advertising and fashion photography, more specifically experiential branding. I have more of a global perspective on things because I lived in Hong Kong and Detroit. So, yeah.
Wow, Hong Kong and Detroit. I can't think of a more relevant guest. So you're Black, white, Native American, you live in Detroit, and you lived in Hong Kong. Tell us about what it was like living in Hong Kong.
Living in Hong Kong, it was honestly amazing. I mean, so the thing about it's like I lived there on and off for 2 years, right? So I see Hong Kongers are just so like Americans in terms of their love for freedom, speaking their mind, being really creative. Like I feel like they're very progressive as a country in general. So for me, when I went back to Hong Kong the second time and to see the Chinese Communist Party's kind of trying to crush Hong Kong's freedom, it was just heartbreaking. And that's why I had to join the protest.
So, hold on. You did a protest in Hong Kong. Tell me about that.
Yeah, so the protests in Hong Kong, they started in the summer. I came home for the summer, but I knew that I was going back there, and I was going back there just because I love Hong Kong. But really, once I heard about the protests and I heard about everything that was going on, like I was going back with a vengeance. Like I was going back to help my friends maintain their freedom.
Freedom from China.
Freedom from China, exactly. Right.
Wow. So you've been to protests in Hong Kong, fighting for your friends for their freedom from China in Hong Kong, and then you said you were in Hong Kong up until I heard January of 2020.
Right. So
tell me about that.
Right. So before the news even really broke in America, as soon as the news broke in Hong Kong, it was January. So I've known about this for, I guess, to this point, half a year, just about. The virus, you know, it's really different culturally because I feel like culturally, Chinese people have much more empathy and sympathy for their fellow people, mm-hmm. to be safe for each other.
Sure.
But regardless, it did cause my school to shut down. I had to come back home within a week, which was really rough. Packing up my life, saying goodbye to all of my friends. And not to mention, like, we're still in the midst of protests. So, I mean, they were dying down, but we're still in the midst of the protests. So it was just very hectic.
The Hong Kong protests.
Right.
So you left protests in Hong Kong, came when the coronavirus came about over there, came back to America, suffered through the coronavirus lockdown, and now you're in a different kind of protest. Tell us about the Black Lives Matter protest that you've been doing, and tell me how many you've been to.
Right. So I have been to, I think in Detroit, there's been 8 protests, maybe 9. I've been to definitely 5 of them. They're just happening every day. You know, you just, as soon as the news broke and somebody organized it, we were like, all right, we're gonna do this. You just make signs, you stay up all night, wake up, protest all the way until night, go to sleep, wake up, protest again. Like, it's just nonstop. But the thing about Detroit is, it's not necessarily like our police, we don't have maybe as many issues with our police as Minneapolis does, though our police definitely do have issues, like especially considering Saturday when a lot of people were arrested, and there were notes of rioting and this and that. Mm-hmm. There was a lot of issues with the police and their behavior. But the thing about the protests here and Black Lives Matter is that it's about showing solidarity with the nation, right? So we're not necessarily protesting our police, we're protesting police everywhere, across the nation, across the globe. That's what everyone's doing right now. That's this whole transformative time, that's what this is about.
So who was arrested?
I mean, so there's, you know, this talk about, oh, there's outside agitators, and
is there Antifa?
Is there Antifa? So the thing about Antifa is that Antifa isn't a group, it's an idea, right? Anti-fascist, right? That's all it is. I mean, if you're an American, like, you should be anti-fascist. So I guess you could say everyone's Antifa in that sense.
Sure.
You know, but the thing about it is that people are angry about how the police handle them in general. Like, for example, Saturday, I didn't go to the protest on Friday. I came Saturday. Okay. What I witnessed was the aftermath of anger of people being arrested on Friday. A boy was shot on Friday, which was awful.
You heard the drive-by shooting?
Yeah, a boy was shot, right? People were peacefully protesting and they were arrested. So people were just angry. And I was on the front line trying to calm protesters down, but the police, I don't know.
So like Black people, white people, Asian, everybody was arrested. And then why do you think they're arrested? You're breaking the curfew or what?
So yes, Black people, white people, everything, every race was arrested that night.
Right.
The reason why was because of breaking curfew. But the thing about it is that, and I think this is what the nation is starting to realize as we see troops being drawn back and police using different tactics, is that there's no reason for the curfew. Like, especially in Detroit, like, there really wasn't any rioting. The curfew made people angry because we just felt like it's suppressing our rights to protest.
Right. So that kind of, but my question to you, you know, I mean, I've been to a few of these protests myself, and I feel like there's some truth to the idea that, you know, a lot of people have been cooped up for months, and this coronavirus has made people a little bit, say, have cabin fever, and I felt like in a way that a lot of the breaking of the curfews, you know, it was like, oh, you know, it's like we haven't been to any concerts, we haven't been to anything. I mean, this is a serious stuff, but I felt like it was almost like some of the kids were like, oh, well, we're gonna stay after the curfew because it's kind of like the after party.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong, like, there were definitely kids there, like it was a party or something, and it pissed me off.
Right, I saw that.
I was extremely angry. We went to the Fist on Saturday, right?
Right.
Had these amazing speeches. I talked about my 3 demands, which are police reform, independent investigations, and transparency.
Okay.
And then after that, they were like, all right, let's march. As soon as we start marching, there are kids with firecrackers that sound like gunshots.
No, no.
After someone got shot the day before, that's what set the police off that's when the sirens came on.
Right. And, but I think that, like, for me, like, with the whole police brutality, to me, that's like, was, in my opinion, like, it was like the tipping point that set everybody off. But I feel like, isn't the Black Lives Matter, it's more about not just the police reform, but it's just about overall cracking, racism in our country that's affected, Black people, especially for 400 years. How
Right.
do you feel like we're making progress, or do you think that we're going to do all these protests? It's going to be a lot of craziness for a few months, and then we're just going to return back to normal. How can we avoid that scenario? How do we really how do we make progress? If I'm a Black person, how do I make these protests mean something that finally makes us really change the way we are?
Well, I mean, the thing about the protests is, like, we have so much momentum, right? So much momentum, so much anger. And it's very short-sighted.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So these protests, it's not just about George Floyd's death. It's not just about getting those 4 officers arrested. It's also about Breonna Taylor. It's also about Trayvon Martin. It's about everyone that's been affected, right? So the long-term things that we need to be talking about, and this is, when I go to protests, I talk to everyone and I learn what organizations I can join. Like, where can I go after the protests have stopped? Who should I be electing? Where can I find information about the laws that are in place? There are many organizations. Like, how can I just actually making more change than just making noise?
Right. So you're a fashion photographer and you're in experiential branding.
Right.
So how do you feel, as a fashion photographer and experiential brander, how you can make the Black Lives Movement come alive and really kind of almost be advertised and marketed in such a way?
Well, so the thing for me, and I'm blessed that I live in Detroit because I get to work with Black designers. I get to work with Black designers. I get to work with Black boutique owners. I get to work with Black models. I get to be the vessel to show their work. Do you get what I mean?
Yes, absolutely.
So that's my contribution to empowering Black people, is taking pictures of their things, marketing their things, telling them how they can do this and that to make a profit and boost the economy of Detroit overall. And I think that's what a lot of people can do, is lend your services to Black owners, designers, whatever, and also
and to support the Black business owners.
Yeah, exactly. And shop locally. Like, can I say fuck on here?
Yeah, we can say whatever you want.
All right, fuck H&M. Fuck Forever 21.
Right.
Like, we need to be supporting our Black-owned businesses in Detroit and across the nation. I mean, that's the thing. You don't want corporations to run you, then don't support the corporation, right?
Do you feel like the American corporations that, like, some people were looting, like, these like established?
Oh, so this is a great thing I learned from Hong Kong, right? The Hong Kongers, when you destroy things, you target specific things. Like, you destroy with a purpose, right? So disrupting the MTR, their subway system, was because it was backed by the Chinese Communist Party, destroying banks, destroying just businesses in general that are known to be funded by China, right?
Yes.
And they basically did an economic blackout, which is what we're going to be doing on June 7th, where they only use local businesses. They only supported their own country's businesses.
Right.
Right? So, yeah, no, fuck the corporations, all right? This idea of money over people needs to end, and that's what people are upset about. There's no reason why looting is in some people's minds making more noise than murder.
Right. Lives are more important than material. But do you feel like these American corporations, like, I don't know, Target or they're burning. A lot of people are AutoZone, or do you think that the American structure is implicitly racist and like almost symbolically needs to go? What do you feel about that?
I think that that's a thick question. I don't think that corporations are inherently racist.
Okay.
Right? But the fact of the matter is that corporations are run by people, right? And so if these people aren't doing their part to step up in the current climate to support the people that buy things from them, then burn it down.
Interesting. I like it.
Yeah, that's how I feel.
Support Black business and burn down all the rest of the business. I do believe you're making a point. So let me ask you something. Do you think America is just kind of like whack, like in the way that it's set up? Like, do you feel like Asia is more of a progressive environment, like Hong Kong, where people don't express racism as much? Or do you think people are pretty much the same wherever you go?
Well, see, the thing about Hong Kong, the thing about Hong Kong is, there's racism everywhere, but you have to understand, Hong Kong is also mostly not completely, but majority homogeneous society, right?
Yeah.
It's mostly Chinese people.
Sure.
So, but I think it is more progressive in the way that they think about each other and they treat each other is more progressive to me. Like there's just it's almost like a hive mind, like a collective understanding that when something happens, you need to be there for each other. Like millions, billions of people protesting in the street all at one time is just the collective understanding that we all feel this way and we need to be there for each other. And I feel like it lacks in America, but it's also hard because we're also so spread out. Like we're much larger in landmass, and
more diverse.
And we're also more diverse. But it warms my heart to see that's why I'm protesting in solidarity with Minnesota. Minnesota and Minneapolis, because they need to know that they're not alone. That even though I can't stand right next to them shoulder to shoulder, I'm still an American. I still will be here and I will protest on my streets for you.
What do you see as the kind of America you want to live in, let's say in the next 5-10 years? What would be a successful vision for you as an American?
A successful vision for me in America. I think that successful, honestly, this is what people are asking for, is the complete reconfiguration of our system, right? So the police force, prisons, all of these kind of authoritative organizations that we have in the United States need a complete restructuring, because they're inherently built on racist principles. Like the prison industrial, if you know about the prison industrial complex.
Yeah, I just saw the 13th,
Yeah.
13th or something on Netflix.
Right. It's basically how slavery was just moved into the prison system.
Oh yeah.
So everything that we have, it's built on this history of racism. So when people say like fuck the system and dismantle the system, it's because it's so broken. So that's what would make America better for me, would be a complete restructuring. We need to add more love, more empathy, more understanding to people in general.
So it's really about really overthrowing the current broken system that we all have engaged in, from corporations on down, to system, to police. You know, that's a huge undertaking. I mean, I hate to ask you, but what do you think of President Trump?
You know, I tried and I tried and I tried to give this man the benefit of the doubt over and over and over. At the end of the day, he does not care about people. He cares about money. And that is what a lot of conservatives care about. It's that when you hear on the news, oh, these looters, these looters, these looters, all I hear is economics, economics, economics. I don't hear these people are so sad and so angry. What about their feelings? What about the world that they live in, that they're expressing their anger in this way? You know what I mean? It's always money over people, and that's exactly what Donald Trump is doing. And I will thank him from the bottom of my heart for signing that bill for Hong Kong. From the bottom of my heart. But now I feel like I have to choose Sleepy Joe because Trump doesn't care about the people protesting in his country, even though he supports the protesters of China. And my friends in Hong Kong are worried because they don't even want to push Biden. They don't even want to, push Biden and tell the world that we should all influence America to vote for Trump, for Biden, because they're worried that he's going to be too soft on China. It's almost like we all feel like we're losing. And why do we all have to lose? Like it's just the entire system is broken. So, and I know we want to be like, joking and laughing and stuff, but it's broken.
I mean, it sounds like, we would like to, and we probably should all live in an America that puts people over profit. And that's the kind of America.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Curiously enough, though, tell me a little bit more about your experiential branding and your fashion photography, and again, how it all ties in, because I find that fascinating.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. So I personally, I'm just really moved by people. Like I think that's why I'm such an activist. And so advertising, gets a bad rep, like for tricking people and manipulating and this and that. But experiential branding is actually about it's about creating an experience for a specific set of group of people. So say that you like going to festivals, right? And Dove wants to get involved in festivals. Well, we know that people are smelly there, they're sweaty, they want to freshen up. So you put a Dove tint there so people can put on deodorant and wash their faces.
Sure.
right? It's about building the love for the brand, but it's about the brand actually caring about the consumer. So so you're not tricking them. You're building a better world with products that people would actually love to use. So, and that's why I think that's important. And that's what I want to bring to Detroit. I want brands to be here and to engage with Detroiters, because Detroiters are so unique. Like the soul of the city here is just so unique, like the art, the culture, that if I can get brands here to engage with us to build the economy, that's what I want to do.
Wonderful. Now, I've been observing these, riots and all this stuff going on around the country, and I think it's very unique, like you said, about Detroit, that we really haven't had very much destruction or violence, unlike the rest of the country. Why do you think that is?
Oh, well, I mean, the history, man. My grandparents were in the 67 riots, Like, sorry, I'm gonna close this window.
That's fine. Because I was pretty much thinking the same thing, that Detroiters are just tired and they don't want to go backwards.
No, because the thing about it is, like, we're still rebuilding from the riots. Like, we're like my dreams and my aspirations are based in Detroit being in ruins, like, and trying to rebuild it, because I love the city.
Right.
But the fact of the city being ruined gave me the inspiration to do all of these things and build people up. But yeah, we don't want to go back there. We have so much respect for the city. It's our city, regardless of the flaws, regardless of the corporations or the police. It's our city. And we have a whole generation of people who are just building up capital and waiting to take it over.
Yeah.
So,
and I almost feel that, 313 Believe, 313 Believe is our brand, but Detroit could be a model city for the rest of the country and set the tone that, hey, we're white, black, we're everything in Detroit, and we're going forward. We don't need to be going backwards. So tell me more about it.
So that's the thing. Like, it's a bit of a toss up for me, right? Like for me, and this is fascinating that you asked me this question, because I've been thinking about this for the last week. It is different, right? If that is the way that the Minneapolis people want to handle the situation, then I think they deserve to handle the situation however they want to handle the situation. I will not be burning my city down.
No.
But as far as a model goes, I mean, our police on Saturday were very rude and very, very, very violent with the civilians. We had major issues with them. But what can we do? We have to go into the system and find those officers and root them out and get them fired. Because we can't necessarily do a complete overturn of the entire system in Detroit.
But as a whole, we know there's some bad apples, as they say, but do you feel that the Detroit police maybe is a little bit easier to deal with, and maybe that was a contributing factor?
Right. They are a little easier to deal with, because so we have the Black Panthers here, we have Ceasefire, we have a lot of old heads from that grew up, that were impacted by the riots or even in the riots in 1967, that are working with the police officers to make a better Detroit. So we already have like a footing with them. You know what I mean? Like, we're pretty integrated in. And even the police of chief, is that right?
Yeah.
Police chief, right. Was surprised when he heard the stories about how some of the officers handled the protesters. And I just think, you know,
there's a lot of hope. I mean, it sounds like Detroit, I mean, compared to the rest of the country, I mean, I feel like we've been leading by example.
Yeah. I mean, but the thing about it is also, like, for example, getting the curfew lifted. We didn't stop protesting. We protested day after day after day until that curfew was lifted, because the fact of the matter is that when you move in mass and you have solidarity, things change. And people won't be, the thing about it all as well is that people aren't violent unless the police are violent. That's what I've noticed. Like, the narrative in the media is so twisted, but actually being down there on the ground, people aren't violent until the police are violent. And the police, a lot of the police, even in Detroit and across the nation, have this idea that they are supposed to be aggressive and that they're supposed to be this force, when really all everyone wants is peace. Even in Hong Kong, that's all they wanted. The people who were the protesters, the people who were anti-China and the people who were pro-China, all everyone wanted was for Hong Kong to be a peaceful place. And they were both fighting for the same thing, just different ways.
Do you feel like the media, like, kind of depicting like America being looted and on fire is contributing to the demise of America, or do you think they're just reporting what's out there?
They're not just reporting what's out there, because the thing about it is that, like, for example, like the news in Detroit, when curfew hit on Saturday, they were out. They were not reporting at all about what I saw. You know, they just, like, they are perpetuating this idea that people are so violent, but they don't take videos of the peacemakers. They don't take videos of people going, stop, like, let's all calm down, let's have a conversation, like, don't do that, don't throw that, don't do this. And honestly, all it does for the media is reinforce the narrative that they reinforce the idea that they do control the narrative, that they're not truthful and honest about what's going on in the world. And that's the thing too. Like, people don't like the media. Like, everything that has these big organizations of people that have been ruling the way that we look at society for so long are fucking up, and we're tired of it.
I mean, do you think that the media is just trying to, because it's, Trump doesn't like the media, do you think it's just pushing for Biden and using the rioters kind of as a political tool?
I think from the conservative side, so I'm the kind of person, like, where I've messed up my Instagram algorithm, so I purposefully get conservative news and liberal news.
Interesting.
Yeah, so I can understand both sides of the argument, but on the conservative side, like, for sure, the media is making the looting seem like it is the most extreme thing that's happening, and that we're losing control as Americans. And in reality, when the way we're losing control is when you have a president that calls troops out, that calls its own Americans out as troops to target other Americans. That's when you lose control of the country. It's fascist, you know what I mean?
Right. Because you see a lot, I mean, with your own eyes and my own eyes, I've been to 3 protests, you see a lot more peaceful protesters than you do violent protesters, correct?
Right. No, for sure. For sure. And the fact of the matter is, like, even if it was a violent protest, even if they were violent protesters, like, they're angry. Like, I'm not going to be mad at them for being mad. Like, and I was mad at some people for doing firecrackers and stuff like that. But I also have to understand, like, these people are hurting. Like, how about we have a conversation about how to fix their pain versus what they're doing? Like, why don't we look at why are they doing that? Because they're hurting.
Right. I mean, I almost feel like you living in Hong Kong and then being in the protests in Hong Kong, fighting against the controlling CCP, I almost feel like, in a way, like Trump and or our American system is almost like the CCP in America, controlling us, and then we have to rebel against the CCP.
That's the thing. That's the thing. Like, at this point, I'm almost feeling like American government, Chinese government, like, we're getting pretty close to them. Like, is this really a democracy? China calls themselves a democracy. It's written in their constitution: life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, freedom of speech and religion. They have Muslims in concentration camps right now.
CCP does.
Right, yeah. Working for Nike. Factual.
Well,
yeah.
So they're having them work.
They're using they're rounding up Muslims and having them do slave labor to make production, like for Nike.
That's insane.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, you don't practice what you preach. It's written, but it doesn't matter if you have a leader that doesn't care about what is written down and what everyone else in the nation holds so dearly to their heart, like the Constitution. That Trump doesn't care about that.
Yeah.
And he has all these people believing somehow that his word is golden, but it's not. And that's the thing, like, the people protesting right now are the most American, most patriotic people in the country.
They're the true Americans.
We are the true Americans.
They're like rebelling against the British government.
Exactly.
They're the real Americans, and they've been forgotten. So, do you think there's any truth to the idea that China and or Russia is interfering in America and has a vested interest in us fighting, especially racially?
I mean, I'm sure that, like, I mean, there's no doubt about it that, like, there's been bots that have been found, and that there's evidence that China and Russia have both had their hands in creating chaos in America. But the thing about it is just, this needed to happen because America needed to see its own ass to fix itself. Like, and that's why I, as fucked up as it is, I'm glad that Trump was in office so that we could fix ourselves. Because if we had, for example, Hillary Clinton, who is also corrupt but just does everything hush hush, we would have never made this much noise and progression and understanding about each other and the issues in our own society.
I got you. So it's kind of like the Trump backdrop of kind of being the kind of being the fascist backdrop to fight against. But where do you see us again, like after these protests, because they're going to end at some point, or maybe they're going to keep going, but they're going to dwindle down. Where? How do we, besides, like, are you into this defunding the police now? They're yapping away about that. What are you doing?
Yeah, so defunding the police, right? My understanding about defunding the police is that I can't remember exactly why. I think it's just not using our tax dollars to fund the police, right? So I don't know. I don't remember, but I do remember the other day saying, yes, defund the police, but I can't remember.
But like you said, you have your 3 points. Tell us those points again.
Right. So I had 3 demands on Saturday. I actually have 4 as of Tuesday. But my 4 demands are police reform. First of all, I think that there needs to be, even talking to the police in Detroit, and trying to come to an understanding with them, I still saw these narcissistic tendencies. Egos, the idea that police are supposed to be aggressive. And them getting aggressive with me, even just having a conversation with them. Like, there needs to be a screening for that, for sure.
Police reform.
And they say that they have all these levels of testing, but we need to be testing for rational thinking, empathy. You know what I mean? Like, if the system is built on racism and the system is built on one certain type of thinking of aggression, then that means everyone they hire is going to be like that to some extent. Like, we need to rethink what kind of people need to be holding guns. Because obviously not the ones we have.
Right. And then the other 2 points?
The second one is independent investigations. So right now, there's only there's no review board for police misconduct. The people who review police misconduct are essentially the police or police unions. That would be like China investigating itself and then being like, oh no, we didn't kill any protesters. Like, it was a suicide, which is a lie. You know what I mean? There's no accountability. And Killer Mike even said the same thing. So, yeah.
Killer Mike?
Killer Mike, he's a well-known rapper and activist in the Black community. Yeah. The third thing is transparency. So, like, as cases unfold, understanding, being able to see what's going on and why the decisions are made, who made them, and how decisions were made. Essentially, like, the public shouldn't have to search for miles and miles to come to an understanding about what's going on. And the fourth thing is prison reform, because I mean, if you know anything about, I'm pretty sure it's called the Stanford prison experiment, right? Where they had civilians policing other civilians for 2 months. That's essentially what prisons are to this day. And prisons are the most racist place in America. And they need to be dismantled.
Dismantled?
Yeah, like, they dismantled, not necessarily dismantled, but it needs a complete restructuring. Like, yeah. So those are my 4 demands.
Are you hopeful then, wrapping up this interview, are you hopeful, Zora, as a Black, white, Native American, but Black person living in Belle Isle, Detroit, that are you hopeful as a 22-year-old that America's finally going to turn the page and make some progress, maybe not perfect, but make some progress towards all these actions that you're calling for?
I think so. Like, that's what I'm really, really happy about. Like, I think it actually is. But the thing about it's like, I just don't want people to lose the momentum. Like, don't lose the steam. Like, it took Hong Kongers the entire year to get some change, protesting day in and day out, you know, disrupting the economy, disrupting businesses, disrupting the country to get some real change. So I see that change is starting to happen. So I'm excited, but I just hope it keeps going. I am hopeful. Yes.
You are hopeful. And that's all we can really rely on: hope, belief, and action. And
yeah, exactly.
Zora, you've been amazing. And 313 Believe wants to be a part of this change as well. You know, we believe in Detroit, believe in the people of Detroit, and we're going to be doing some more positive things to help the city and keep you know, racial harmony and understanding and open dialogue, and just really just, bearing our soul and working out our issues, because we're like yin and yang, the black and white, we're together. We're just two sides of the same coin, and we're inseparable.
Yeah.
And that's something. But you're amazing, and so you're Zora Bowens, but you're gonna be, again, you're gonna get rid of the slave name.
Yeah, it's gonna be Monico.
Monico, I love it.
Monico.
And where can people find you, Zora, right now? How can people reach you? How can they interact with you?
You can find me on my Instagram, which is Generation Zora, because I'm Generation Z, Age of the Aquarius. Yeah.
Generation Zora.
Yep.
Instagram. And you're going to be doing some fashion photography, and besides the protesting, and some more experiential branding, maybe some cool relevant stuff.
Yeah, coming up this summer, I'm really plotting on some things, working with some people. I'm really about to make some big moves, so definitely follow me on Instagram and to keep up, and if you want to work together or whatever. Yeah, and my website is also in my Instagram bio. Yeah,
313 Believe. As it grows, we'd love for you to do some experiential branding for us too, and we could talk.
Yeah, definitely.
Hey, you've been a great, incredible guest. This is probably the longest interview I've done, because you were the most fascinating. So I want to express your thanks and give my love to your mother.
Yeah, thank you so much.
And I hope to meet you in person, and I would like you to have a 313 Believe mask or something. We can.
Yeah, definitely. I would love that.
But anyway, thank you so much. You have a blessed, great night, and hopefully we'll do this again, and I'm going to meet you soon. So thank you.
Yeah, okay. Thanks.
313 Believe. I'm here in Berberian. Zora. Check out Zora, Generation Zora on Instagram. That's where it starts.
That's me.
And she's great. You're a phenomenon. We need more people like you, and I think there are a lot of people like you, and I think you're going to keep the phoenix of.
Yeah, we're going to change the world. We're going to change the world.
Awesome.
Thank
Wonderful
you.
perspective. Thank you again.
All right. Bye-bye.